Well, hello everybody. Pastor Randy here. Welcome to Making It Simple. We're going to continue in our new series on power. Now, yesterday we introduced this by the very familiar scripture from Philippians chapter 4. Be careful for nothing, be anxious for nothing. Don't worry about everything, but rather be in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving and letting our requests be made known unto God. So we talked about the idea, the understanding, the power that can come from a carefree mind. And again, clarifying, that does not mean I don't care, but rather that I am not allowing the worry and the burdens and the anxiety and everything else that life continues to bring, for whatever reason, I'm not going to let that steal my power. I'm not going to let that steal my joy. It's one of those things that someone could easily say, well, that sounds good, but how is that possible? I'd love that, but I could never do that. It sounds really nice, but is that real? Are we capable? I take us back to what I mentioned yesterday. We're created in the image of God. There's nothing we can't do. Nothing. We limit ourselves greatly because we allow the enemy to get in our ear, much like back at creation when he got in Eve's ear and says, hey, there's a better way. Or, hey, you don't have to listen to that. Or, hey, that's not really what God meant. I mean, yeah, you've got everything, but hey, you could have more. The pursuit of the more is oftentimes where we find the anxiety because we keep looking for something that's not there. Or we keep traveling down a dead-end road wondering why aren't we getting anywhere? And so the anxiety and the worry and the depression and everything else continues to build up, the sadness, the letdown, all this different stuff. And so then we not only have a worry-filled mind, we've lost our way. We lose our sense of direction. How can we turn this thing around? Because God allows do-overs, God allows U-turns. How do we get there? How do we come to this place that Paul is speaking of here, being anxious or careful for nothing? Again, it's not about I don't care. That's a different mentality. That's a whole different story. But rather, I'm not filled with those things that are stealing my joy, stealing my direction. I am trusting God for the days ahead. How do I get there? Can we do it? The answer is yes. But it's just like everything else, friend. It's a process. Again, it's just about everybody in some capacity or another. It's a very standard thing. Here we are, the first of the year. How many people have made a resolution? I'm going to, and then just fill in the blank. Generally, it has something to do with health or getting in shape or leaving some type of addiction behind, whatever that might be. I'm going to do this or I'm going to stop doing that or whatever. And as we all know, that usually lasts till about the end of the month and then that goes right back out the window. If we desire to pursue that which God says we can do, it's a process. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it may not always be easy. It is like going to the gym in the sense that you're going to get sore. Sometimes it's going to hurt and you're going to sweat. There may even be a little blood involved. I don't know. But the point of it is, it's just not going to be handed to us on a silver platter because the enemy does not want you to have it. So therefore, you're going to have to work for it. And that's not God being mean. But I remember as a kid, when you worked for something, and in particular, I remember my first car. I worked hard to save that money. After school job, this and that, whatever the case. And again, that was a different era. I mean, the minimum wage was like $3 an hour or something. I mean, it was some ridiculous thing in comparative to today, where people think that, it needs to be a whole lot more. And again, there's a word attached there, minimum. That's so, yeah, okay. But anyhow, I remember the thrill of being able to do that and the pride that you took in that accomplishment. You worked for it. Nobody handed it to you. This process is one that is a daily walk, much like the old hymn writer, just a closer walk with thee, daily walking with me. I mean, again, I could go through the whole lines there of that hymn, but the point, it's my daily prayer. It's my daily, even in the model prayer, the Lord's Prayer, if you will, give us today our daily bread. So it is a daily process. I want us to look at this verse. I want to break it down a little bit. So again, I told you yesterday, as we're beginning this new series on power, it's going to go for a little while, because again, as with all of these lessons, we're not in a hurry. This is not about that we've got a time limit. I'm very respectful of the time. I've got a clock right here in the corner. I know how long that I go. I try to keep it for 20 minutes. Maybe I go a little bit over sometime, but generally somewhere around there. We'll knock it off, and then we'll come back right tomorrow, because it is my intention to be with you Monday through Friday every week, if at all possible. Anything can happen, schedule changes, this and that, but it is my intention to take time out to do this, because I think this is important. I think the simplicity and the beauty and the depth and breadth and everything else of these messages, not just this one, but all of these messages, are impactful and important to our life, regardless of where we are in our spiritual journey, whether we've just begun, whether we're thinking about it, maybe we're not interested at all, or maybe we've been doing it for 50 years. There's something we can learn. If we ever stop learning, then we really don't have a whole lot of purpose left. If we look at this verse, I want to break it down on a few parts of how to consider the power of a carefree mind. What does that mean? When we begin with the very first word, be careful for nothing. Be anxious for nothing, some versions say. Other versions say, why are you worrying? Don't worry about anything. Again, regardless of how it's translated, it all means the same thing. The question is there, as well as a command to a degree, because Paul, as inspired to give these words through the inspiration and power of the Holy Spirit, is saying, is that really helping you any? Because this is an affirmation of what Jesus himself would say, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I want us to think about the first thing we need to do is we need to trust instead of tremble. If you're a note taker, you might want to write that down. Trust instead of tremble. What does that mean? Psalm 25 says, "Oh Lord, I trust in you." Now, I want us to think about that for just a second. Who do we trust today? That word is an expansive word, because we can trust in something, we can trust in a product, we can trust in a company, we can trust in a person. All at the same time, it's like gambling. It's like pulling that arm on the slot machine. It's like filling out your little card thing for the lottery, scratching off the gimmick on the card, whatever. You really don't know. Will it happen or will it not? Will it really come through? Can I really trust in this or them? Or will I be let down? It's a gamble, because we're dealing with things on a human level, on a people level, on a fallible level. Therefore, we get disappointed in this life a lot. God is saying, if you trust in me, not only will I not let you down, not only will I never leave you nor forsake you, but I'll lead you to the right direction. But you got to trust me. And trust means all in. No, well, okay in this part, but I'm going to handle that part. It's all in. There was a popular song years ago called Jesus Take the Wheel. It got a little monotonous. They played it on the radio way too much. But the message is still clear. I can't do this. I'm handing it to you. Okay, if we think about that for a minute, that is full trust. When Peter, we talked about Peter in our last series, when Peter walked on water, it was about full eyes locked in on Jesus' trust. I can't do this without you. And proof positive, the second he took his eyes off, he went down just like a rock. Psalm 25 says, I trust in you. Now, that is not to say that we can't build trust with one another, but always with the understanding it can be broken. That is not to be pessimistic, not to be negative Nancy, but it's just a fact. Think about today how many people have trusted in the system, have trusted a doctor, have trusted a politician, or have trusted this, that, only to be disappointed. And again, I'm not stereotyping or pointing fingers. It's just people have been let down. People have been let down by pastors and by this or that, by a family member, by a friend. We've all experienced that. I mean, I can say, in the last 6 months, you find out very, very quickly when you're on kind of the wrong side of things, meaning not the healthy or good side of things, you find out who your real friends are. And you can get really disappointed when something or someone you trusted in really lets you down. Again, understanding what this passage is saying, building off of what Christ himself said. He said, who of you, by worrying, has added 1 minute to your life? King James says 1 cubit. Same thing, it's a time frame, or it can be made to a stature. It can be either way. So have you gotten any taller, or have you lived any longer because of worry? Well, we have sayings. We're all famous for, well, the old saying is, we have sayings like, I'm worried to death. Do we not realize that's not a good thing? I mean, that's not a good thing at all, because that is a drastic ending to a condition that we get to pick. What he's saying in that, and what Paul is saying here, is, has that helped you at all? Now, that's a good question. That's not a sarcastic question. That's not a redundant question. That's something we have to answer. Has that condition, which you control, the worry, the constant worry, and just, writhing about something, has that helped you at all? Have you benefited in any way whatsoever? Have you benefited in a state of constant worry? Have you gotten powerful, stronger, or have you gotten weaker? Think about that. Think on that, if you will. And then think about what Paul is saying here, what I feel led to teach here. Think about the differential of what it would be to have a carefree mind. Again, I feel like I want to be not repetitive for repetitive's sake, but just for the nature of understanding what I'm trying to teach. I'm not speaking of that, well, I don't care. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not filled with worry. I refuse to let that steal my life. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to trust God. That is not about being lazy and laying down and just giving up. This is about, no, I'm going to direct the traffic here. And there are certain things that are not allowed to come in the gate. I'm going to be the gatekeeper, and I'm going to trust in God. That changes things, friends. That changes things dramatically. I'm getting my words tied up there. A mind filled with vision, a mind filled with hope and excitement, rather than one filled with fear and worry. What is the difference? The difference between those two things is freedom and lockdown. Now, that was a term that was used a lot over the last several years. Did that help anybody? And I'm not making a political statement. I'm asking that seriously. Did that mindset that it created, did it help anybody? Think of the prisoner, if you will, that is in solitary confinement. That means they're closed off from every single person, locked in a dark room by themselves for an X amount of time, days or whatever, as a punishment or corrective measure or what have you. That never benefits that person mentally or emotionally. Never. And I've worked in that industry. I've seen the results of that. That's a different story for a different day. People who were locked up in their house and told you can't go anywhere, that didn't help anybody. But many people remain in lockdown every day, even though that's not the state of the world at this moment in that type of situation, but rather emotionally, mentally, what have you, consumed and overwhelmed by worry, and 99% of the time over something you can't fix. The enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy, rob us of every joy that we could possibly have. I'm not talking about wishful thinking or I hope so, I rub the genie on the lamp. We're not talking about pie in the sky stuff here, friends. We're talking about truly getting healthy beyond eating celery and salad and beet juice. All that's fine, whatever, but my point is, when we begin to trust God, not only is it a matter of the heart, it is a matter of our thinking. When we allow the world, who does not give us our joy, when we allow the world and the purveyor of that, which Paul is very clear in Ephesians is the enemy himself, when we allow that to come in and steal what God gave us, and we do nothing to get it back, we just allow it to remain stolen or on the shelf at the pawn shop to get sold to somebody else, and we do nothing to get it back. We allow ourselves to remain in this place that is continually stealing from us. We can't possibly get better. I'm talking about something that is real. I'm talking about something that is possible. Moving from trembling, what about this? What about that? To trusting. It is completely and fully 100% dependent on where we place our trust. Our trust is not in a political system. Our trust is not in a medical system. Our trust is not in anything but in God, because He's the only one that's not going to lie to us. He's the only one who is not going to lead us wrong. Not one thing that we can find within the confines of Scripture tells us that God is going to do anything to harm us. Why? Because He's our Creator. He's our Father. He loves us. Consequences come when we don't listen. That happens in life. Fire's hot. You touch it, you get burned. That's a consequence. Where are we placing our trust? Faith and fear, we must understand this. Faith and fear are total opposites. They do not coexist. They don't. They do not coexist. They do not operate. One extinguishes the other. We have to understand that. Faith brings salvation. Faith brings security and peace, meaning that I know that I know that I know. I spoke on that yesterday. When we think about the power that gives us, that is an assurity. That is something I don't have to worry about that. That's covered. If I am not here today, Lord forbid, because of, leaving family and this and that, whatever the case, but if that, I am totally 100% at peace that if I close my eyes today, I will be in the presence of God. What that looks like, what that entails, I don't know. But I know that's an assurity for me. I believe that with all my heart. That is not 1 second of my day that I worry about. Not one. Faith brings that type of peace to our life. But it all depends on what we have faith in, which is all a part of the word trust. Fear, though, fear brings worry. Fear brings stress. Fear brings sickness. Fear brings no quality of life. Which one do we want? Faith or fear? I choose faith over fear. There's shirts about that. There's hats about that. It's a very strong statement today. But let me leave you with this. A peaceful mind is a powerful mind. A peaceful mind is a powerful mind. The enemy hates that. We talked about in one of our lessons the things that God hates. I can assure you the enemy hates a peaceful mind, a carefree mind. Because if he can't fill us with worry and doubt and fear and all this other stuff like that, he don't really have anything else to do, because he can't work within that realm. That's not a place, that's not a good playground for him. There's no fun rides in that. Faith over fear. Let it not just be a great quote on a shirt or a nice statement or a placard on the wall. Let it be the way we live. But what are you placing your faith in? Who are you placing your faith in? What do you trust? Remember, a peaceful mind is a powerful mind. And the enemy hates that. And we're going to talk about why tomorrow as we continue this series on power right here and making it simple. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.